All right. Hey guys, my name is Nina Means. I'm the director for Austin Community College Fashion Incubator, and it is a pleasure to come to you here for Workshop Wednesday. We are back talking about product development. We started with a product development cycle, and we're really using a framework that I've used for courses that I've taught in product development for intro level and intermediate level students at the collegiate level. And we're really excited to be able to create really kind of a quick digest version of that course here for you on YouTube Live. So you get an idea about it's kind of the overview of things that you should be considering in the product development space and what those processes really look like. We started off kind of reviewing with you some of the samples in product development. We wanted to kind of go over a bit more on the actual activities that are happening throughout that process to get to your development sample. And really what we would do for our pre-production sample. So what I want to do is actually take a step back. Last week we talked about design and a bit of the sketch review, but I wanted to take a step back just to help you guys understand a little bit more. I alluded to this in the last course. However, I wanted to spend a little bit more time talking with you specifically about, sorry, I've got a 2-year-old maestro back here. So you may hear a little bit of that sound in the background. But what we want to do is to spend a little bit of time um, to help you understand a bit more on the concept components. And so hopefully what we'll be able to do here is to be able to unpack for you some of the things that we shared with you before, but in a bit more detail about where those things come from. So today is going to focus on concepts. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to take a look at the framework that we've been working from for this course. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen here. Let me go ahead and make that a little bit bigger. And so what we want to do is we're going to go into talking a bit more about, I'm going to move this up to, let's see here. All right. Okay, so you should be able to get the best of both worlds in terms of the imagery and what we're going to go through. So the product development cycle, as we discussed it, really started with the concept. But we know that, for designers, they're particularly interested in getting directly into the design and understanding the process that your product will typically go through in order to get vetted into the collection. You want to make sure that all the pieces exist within your collection for a very specific reason. And so there are some things that I opened up to you in the last course. I think we served in this moment to help you understand a little bit more about where the concept was driven from in order to get to that point. So I'm going to take one step back and then we'll do a recap next week, just to make sure we're all on the same page. I may even suggest that you may want to do our first 2 product development courses, watch this video, and then go to the design video next. So whenever you watch it in the playlist for this class, you'll want to put them in that order. So we'll make a note of that with our team. But if you're watching this, you may find some enjoyment of being able to watch them in that order. Again, you know what, it's your on-demand cycle. So if there are things that you're particularly interested in, feel free to navigate wherever you need to. So what I want to do is look at concepts. So really it's going to be this first bubble here. See this beautiful mood board that's been put together that's really driven by color, texture, silhouette, pattern, print, as well as, kind of this range of shades that will appear in the collection itself. One of the things that I wanted to do was to kind of explain to you a little bit more about where some of our trends come from. WGSN is, it used to be called Style Site, if you're familiar with that. But WGSN is really a global style network that allows us to take a look at some of the trends and research and reports for things that are coming up in the next seasons. So this is just kind of a quick overview of some of the reports that they may pull together. And I love that this actually fits in really nicely with our color story from the original slide. But you may get some ideas regarding trends, textures, colors, the way things are kind of translated into product from looking at a trend report similar to this. This is something that I've used at every single major company I've worked for to some degree. Some of them we use much more heavily, and others we've used a bit lighter because it may not have directly related to our customer as specifically. But we always find ways to translate these styles or these colors into different brands. So, for example, when I was working for American Eagle Outfitters, I may have translated this Xanthoria color. It's kind of like a marigold and maple leaf, and maybe this digital teal into a really beautiful floral print for American Eagle Outfitters. And we may have changed some of the colors of a floral print that we had done, a few deliveries back to update it for the season. But if I was doing it for Halston, which is really a solids-driven program, solids-driven brand, I may have experimented with different kinds of fabrics with these colors, maybe some patchwork details where I was using, maybe satin and chiffon and maybe a crepe de chine. And so instead of getting layers and interest in the pattern, or print, floral or leaf print or something like this, I may have actually been getting more inspiration by mixing satin and matte shades, matte materials. I may have gotten more inspiration from combining lightweight, gauzy materials with heavier weight materials, or maybe even combining knits and wovens together. And so there may have been a variety of ways for me to translate these ideas. Or maybe I want to do like an elevated athleisure line, and that shade of Amazon feels like an updated version of Army Green. So these are different ways that we may consider using some of these resources from a trend source that will give us, say, hey, what's coming up for this fall, in terms of color usage for the season, and how are they being created. A lot of these colors, because of our product development cycle, will have already been put into work, I would say, as early as like 6 to 8 months ago, sometimes even earlier, depending on how long your cycle is. Whenever we work in fast fashion, a lot of this kind of soup to nuts, beginning to end from development to sale, may get as quick as 6 weeks if you're someone like Zara. But if you're working for a company where you're trying to really focus on sustainability and transparency, and what we're now calling slow fashion, you may have been started working with these colors, 10 or 12 months ago. And so by the time it's time for them to sell, which is now, these should be delivered in store and ready for you to purchase, or ready online. As a designer, you may be tired of looking at them because you've been working with them for 10 to 12 months already. And I work with brands that have worked that far in advance. And then there are others who are able to move very quickly and to dye into these, and literally dyeing colors that are seasonally appropriate, really at a moment's notice, or digitally printing. That's something that's really changing right now, and so we're wanting to talk a bit more about what's possible in that space, because now, instead of having to wait um, for colors to demonstrate whether or not Danish brown is more popular with your customer, or dark lichen, or the digital teal or maple leaf, you can actually see in real time how your sales are performing, and really only sell into the colors that are working, instead of buying a ton of these colors and dyeing a lot of material into that. So in the development process, a lot of these things are getting kind of sussed out about which colors your customer are really going to respond to. So some people are like, well, how am I supposed to have a crystal ball? How am I supposed to know what my customer is going to want to do? And so what we want to do is to kind of help you understand a little bit more about what's going to drive your concept, because you really want to look at, your concept really in terms of metrics as well. So it's not just the beautiful colors that we see, um, like something like this. It's super rich and engaging. You kind of get pulled into all of these beautiful images. It's also things like this. And for designers, you may not think of this as your concept or inspiration space, but truly it is. And so, where we look at what's happening in terms of the market, um, if you're a women's wear designer, what categories are growing or shrinking, what kinds of, I've actually seen this get very specific. in terms of like outerwear categories. And they're like, blazers are up, parkas are down, these kinds of bombers are not as cool anymore. Long bombers are much more interesting, not the short ones. And so very, very, very specific retail data that helps you to decide what things you're going to actually design into for the next season. So I probably shouldn't pick a category that's shrinking or spend much time on a category that's shrinking unless my customer still really loves it. So there's a lot of analysis that has to happen across the board, and I can kind of give you a bit more of an explanation of how you can look at research, but how you really have to still take it with a grain of salt. So this is a source from grandviewresearch.com. And so, this is not my own report. So just to make it clear, we do not own this, but it is a free report available from the Grandview Research that just shows us a grouping of, really 2015 to 2025. So clearly it goes from the past to the current to what they're projecting for the future. And I believe this was created before the pandemic. So I'm curious to see how this may change based on what their expectancy for the market size will be by 2025. But you can see some significant growth. But what I would like to kind of show you is, what's changing. Maybe they did look at the pandemic, because I'm kind of seeing a lot of top wear growing significantly. It's really kind of driving the growth here. So if you guys look at that dark purple band at the very bottom, if I'm a brand and I'm looking to scale, it looks like I may miss some things if I don't really focus on tops. If you see top wear, it's that dark purple. And in 2015, it's significantly smaller, but there's some steady growth happening in that band. And it looks like there's some things that are happening. So what does that actually mean? That people are comfortable with buying tops. People are buying tops increasingly. And I think, honestly, from what we're doing now, you see me on a Zoom call, you see me from the waist up, I'm wearing a jumpsuit today. So, it's kind of the same, full outfit. However, we're really just looking to change what is happening, above the keyboard, so to speak. And so as a brand, I'm looking at what's the lifestyle of my customer and what kinds of pieces are they going to want to look at. So whenever I had gone over a bit of in the design sketch review about product assortment, this is really where you're looking at how many different styles and different categories am I going to want to sketch into and design into to make sure that I've registered these various areas. So if I'm looking at this, if I am in tops, bottoms, pants, shorts, skirts, sometimes we even classify dresses as bottoms because it covers your bottom. Sports and activewear, intimates and sleepwear, footwear and accessories. There may be some things, maybe I don't do footwear and accessories. Maybe I do only tops and bottoms. I'm looking at the split of the market size. And this is really market size. This isn't sales for your brand. I may consider something like this in how I'm laying out my product assortment based on what things are moving and growing in the overall market. Now, the one thing that's missing here are my personal analytics, right? I need to know, what does my customer come to me for? Why are they coming to me? Do they like buying pants from me? If they don't, I may not try to spend as much time, selling into pants there unless I have a very specific strategic, angle to grow that market with my customer. However, if I'm really just kind of saying, let's sell into our strengths, let's sell into what's going well, I'm looking at, okay, where are my wins happening? And let me make sure to keep replenishing in my wins and designing into my wins. And so a lot of this kind of data really helps us with concept, because then it's going to tell me what the weight in my collection is really going to look like. So this is why the data is so important. We really call it designing to metrics. And so as much as you want to make it about this, which I will always love, I love a good mood board. I love a good color palette. If you do this without this, you may be disappointed when it comes to selling your product. So sometimes we over diversify, and that just means you've got too many different kinds of products going on at the exact same time. Sometimes we miss a category meaning that there was an opportunity in the market that we didn't capitalize on. If anyone's been watching, sweatpants are having their day, right? So sweatpants, sweatshirts, elevated sweatpants, elevated sweatshirts, face coverings of all kinds and sizes and designs, innovative face coverings that solve problems and discomfort issues. All of these things are having their moment, right? Because of the way that we're living. And so, that going into your concept is going to be key. So concept is not just, the beautiful mood board. It's mood board plus data. Okay. So it's a little bit of secret sauce, like gut, intuition, soothsayer, future casting, vision boarding. And then, a good bit of metrics. So anyone who'll tell you about something that goes viral will tell you something similar. It's similar in the video space. It's secret sauce and data. It kind of comes together whenever you're creating something that's supposed to sell into a psychologically engaging space like fashion. It's really the way that we get dressed says so much about who we feel we are and how we feel about ourselves day to day. It changes. You may feel, like a bit more daring and trying one day, and then another day you may just say, hey, it's all about comfort. Maybe that's your day every day, and that's perfectly fine. It has nothing to do. That's kind of the funny thing about fashion, is that it's never really about us all looking the same. It's really about us all finding our own identity, and really for the brands to kind of tap into the identity of their customer effectively by understanding their data. So there's another one here that I wanted to share with you. Let me see if I can advance this a bit. Let's see. Give me just a second. All right, so this guy, open this one up. Okay, so this is really the last section of this that I wanted to kind of lean into, is that it's not just your concept still on data. It's not going to be just focused on your categories. I also want you to really be thinking about where these categories are showing up in distribution. Ooh, okay, so why am I asking you to think about this? Really, the reason why we're thinking about this, guys, is because your market share in your distribution channel is going to be key as well. So whenever people are buying from you, where do they buy from you? Are they buying from you on social media? Are they buying from you from your website? Are they buying from you from your stockists, like your specialty stores or department stores? Or are they buying directly from your brick and mortar? A lot of this has a lot to do about how you design the product. So let me give you an example. So whenever I designed for American Eagle Outfitters, we had different regions that we would design for specifically. So sometimes I'd be working on one collection and like literally 100 styles of just dresses, 100 styles of just dresses for a 6 to 8 week delivery cycle. So that just means that those styles would be living on the sales floor for about 6 to 8 weeks, 100. And the reason why it was 100 styles that would eventually get whittled down to 60 was because we had to design for different markets. It wasn't just for, every company has a different way to divvy up their trend stores, their basic stores, their half trend, half basic stores, and also kind of taking into cultural considerations if they're selling globally, like a lot of the companies that I designed for do. They may only offer certain colors in certain markets because those colors would sell versus other ones. But whenever it came to working on where they would show up on the distribution cycle, if I was designing for television, meaning I was designing for QVC, there was a certain pop that we needed on screen in order for the product to sell. And so it would need dimension, it would need fabric changes, it would need, combining fabrics together. It would need, thank you, Bubba. It would need color, some really, dynamic color, so that on screen, it would really engage the audience. Now, if I was selling on on e-commerce, sorry about that, Jonathan, baby. So if I was selling on e-commerce, of course, whenever you want to really like lean into one topic, this is how it works. So welcome to my world. If you're leaning, if you're leaning into one particular one, some of those, hold on just a second. Thank you for not doing that. All right. So if you, we did our best. So if you were to do, so in e-commerce, guys, this is really where it's super important. So e-commerce really makes a huge difference here because what we're seeing is an opportunity to, register color, register silhouette, evoke emotion, and so some things like basic T-shirts may not register as well on your e-commerce site unless that's all you do, and people are coming to you specifically for T-shirts and they already know your product. Now, what's happening when you go into store, there's some things that you can actually register in the store that are not as dynamic. Maybe they're folded and they're placed on tables or they're hanging, but they're not having to do the work of what happens in an e-commerce space that needs a bit more novelty, a little bit more wow, a little bit more excitement, to kind of register interest enough to put it into the cart or to create enough pull emotionally that says, I absolutely have to have that piece right now, especially when you're not selling promotionally, if you don't have a sale attached to it. So whenever we look at how your sales are going, a lot of people during this time, especially with COVID, have seen a huge growth of their online sales, even though it's still a smaller percentage than their offline business. So be aware of how your numbers affect your overall experience. Like, even though online has been growing, really hand over fist over the last 6 to 8 months, you really still are not eclipsing what's happening in your offline business. And so in your concept space, when you're thinking like, how are we creating this product, your offline business is still doing more work for you than your online business. And so all of this goes into the preparation for designing your collection. It's a lot to think about, but trust me, if you think about these different areas, it'll really help you. So, just as a quick recap, and then I'm going to come back to the main screen, is, autumn colors, or whatever season you're focused on right now, really looking at all the textures and colors that you want to register, or, where are you getting that research from? Is it from street style? Is it from, the color that did really well last season that your customers literally asking you for in your comment section, says, please make this color again, or could you make it in blue? Then we say, absolutely. We are making sure if there's not a blue in this palette, I'm adding a blue because my customer asked me for that. So welcome to Concept. We are providing what the customer is asking for. But then we're going to take a look at the women's wear market size or menswear market size and look at what's happening in our business in terms of growth. What areas are slated to grow? And what do we need to make sure that we also design into to make sure that we don't miss the market, right? We want our slice of the pie as well. So we want to make sure that our business doesn't ignore a major growth area, which here looks like tops. Tops are doing their thing. So don't, you may want to, if you're primarily a bottoms, brand, maybe it's an opportunity to diversify into an area that is growing. But it looks like bottoms are also growing as well. So there's a variety of areas that you can really look at across the board that are creating value. But as I'm looking at this, I see the greatest growth happening in the tops. We are not actually providing sales information here, so don't feel like we are telling you what you should be designing into, but this is just an example of things that you can be using to help guide your process. And then lastly, just looking at where your market share distribution is happening by channel and where you should focus on your product showing up and designing appropriate for those distribution channels. So if you are primarily like an e-commerce or a digitally native brand, showing up in a way that your online customer registers with and that it feels, you've got a great pull, you've got really great color, you've got a great community, you've got a great aesthetic and brand feel, really kind of speaking through the screen to your customer with that silhouette and color and texture. Maybe some zooms, some really beautiful detail shots to help people understand the craftsmanship that goes into your product. But if it's offline, you really have an opportunity for those customers to kind of turn those details inside out. So if you're a higher end brand and your customer gets a chance to experience you offline, you'll probably want to make sure that a lot of your details and finishes echo that experience. If it's a higher end brand, if it's a lower end brand, you've got some other leeway in terms of the things that, if we'll call it a value brand, value. We don't talk cheap, we say it's inexpensive. So these are all words: value, inexpensive. You may have different finishes that are okay for you to use at those price points. And so, at all levels, regardless of who you're designing for, they're all valid, worthy customers. And so you want to make sure to provide them what they're expecting at this space. And it really starts at the concept. So I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen. I think we're almost, let's see. Yeah, we've got a couple of minutes. That was actually pretty good on timing. But what we want to do is to just kind of unpack for you, the various ways that concept can really drive, your business forward, and to know how during the product development cycle to integrate that knowledge to help you design more effectively and much more potently for your customers. So. And for your business, this really is a business. I know that a lot of people kind of come into this because they're highly creative. However, those who I find succeed best in this business are both analytical and creative. So it doesn't mean that you can't excel as a purely creative person, but you'll probably want to get some support on the analytics side to make sure that you're steering your water course, steering your creative energies into products that will help you grow and build your business. So that's actually something that we do here at the Fashion Incubator. We're actually bringing on 6 new brands here in October, starting with our virtual incubation October 1st. And so we're looking forward to sharing with you guys some of the exciting things that are going to come out of that. We'll be interviewing them on our ACCFI Presents. So you'll get a chance to get to know each one of the brands much more closely, learn what they've been doing during COVID-19. And also getting a chance to really understand a bit more about our world in fashion. Couple of updates, couple of things that I wanted to mention. Earlier this week, we had some technical difficulties, so sorry that we missed you guys earlier. But we wanted to just kind of remind you that the Macy's course is launching October 7th. That is a free class to the community. And it's really a highlight class. Consider it a highlight reel. If you are in the decision space about whether or not you're going to create a brand out of your, samples or capsule or, just some really great ideas, you have that class is for you. We've got 5 spaces that are still open. And definitely take a look. If you haven't joined our email list, it's fashion.incubator@austincc.edu. And there actually may also be links to that class on our Facebook, LinkedIn, and Instagram at ACC Fashion Incubator. So if you're looking for that information, looking for that class, send us a quick email to fashion.incubator@austincc.edu or check out our social media handles at ACC Fashion Incubator, and we should be able to get you linked up there. So again, guys, thanks so much for your time. It's a pleasure to get a chance to share with you our product development cycle, just give you just a brief window in. This really is just a highlight. And we will get a chance to connect with you guys here again soon. So we'll be talking with our partner at Macy's later this week, and we'll be back on Monday for Coffee Talk. So guys, thanks so much again, and we look forward to connecting with you all soon. Take care.